Action! Welcome to episode 3 of Keisha's Kitchen. Today we're going to be making some of our pasta sauce. This is a recipe that I started in college, and I've kind of, I don't know if I've perfected it, but it's pretty good now, right? We got a nod of approval. So for you, I would probably just use like a pound or two of ground beef, whatever. It depends on how much money you have. If you really want to like push it, just use a pound. But like we got a little bit of ground beef, we got some ground pork. If you really want to like fancy it up, you can do like a little bit of ground beef, and then like a little bit of sausage. Just because like it kind of just makes it taste a little nicer. So I got my pan. It's already been used. Like we cooked pierogies in it, so it was already a bit warm. So we had it preheating. Usually I kind of like preheat it for you, but it's ready to go. There's still like a little bit of lingering oil in there. You can oil your pan. You don't have to. We did in this case because, I mean, we just used the pan, so don't really have a choice. So yeah, this is a pretty easy recipe. You're gonna see a lot of the same techniques that we used in the chili in this recipe. So I would start with my beef or meat, and then we're gonna sear that, get it nice and brown. Nice and brown. Remove it, drain the fat, add the rest of the veggies that we want. And you don't have to add a lot of the veggies. We like mushrooms in it. Camera lady, you can come a bit closer, that's right. Okay, so we got a big old thing of mushrooms. We kind of like mushrooms. I just use it for a filler myself. I had a red pepper. You don't need to throw it in there. We just had it. So you have our onion as well. And like, I don't know, they're kind of, some of them are small, but like we'll call it like 4 cloves of garlic or whatever. So our meat's in the pan. We're just gonna start breaking it up now. And then we'll probably like press it down so it gets a nice little browning. Maybe even throw some salt and pepper in there. You don't really need to, but it can kind of help flavor the meat a little bit more. But we're gonna be throwing it in the crock pot, right? So it doesn't really need to be seasoned. It'll kind of all meld together eventually. So just that, pressing it down. I'm going to turn up my heat a bit. The meat was cold, so it kind of cooled down the pan. I wanted a little bit more. Same thing with the chili. If you hear it start popping, then it's probably a little bit too hot. And you're going to kind of start painting your walls with oil, burning yourself maybe, whatever. So I'm just opening that. So we got, what do we got here? 2 things of whole tomatoes. Same thing as with the chili. You can use diced if you don't want to. Again, I buy whole because I find that it's a little bit less processed, a little bit better flavor. And I just break them down with my hands, right? So it's all good. That's just my preference. So we're going to start with 2 cans of whole tomatoes. Break it down, and then add a can of crushed tomatoes. And then if I think that we need a little bit more, I'll throw in, or well, quite frankly, if we have the room, I'll throw in another can of crushed tomatoes. We probably will, but for now, we're gonna start with this. Okay, so yeah, so now we're just going to town with, what was it? Just breaking them apart. For me, I gotta be careful not to squirt it all over the counter and stuff. But again, if you're using diced tomatoes, you don't even have to do this step. So, you know, maybe that's what you do. I know for me, I know the timing of this dish. I know that like my meat's not gonna be cooked. Like I'm good. We're good. Like made this sauce so many times. We both probably could do it blindfolded, eh? We like our pasta in our household. So we can look at our meat here. It's starting to brown a little bit. We're gonna leave it for a while. We want it nice and colored, right? Because that colors flavor. And there we go. We got it at the dog. Well, he's just sitting there so patiently. How could you ignore, right? All right. So at this point, we can kind of come and look at what our breakdown of the tomatoes look like. Like there's some like bigger pieces. Whatever. It's fine. It'll all cook down and they'll become quite melty by the end of it. So our pan's kind of gotten up to its initial heat now, and it's starting, I can kind of hear it. It's going to start to pop. It's a little bit too hot. Or it's going to be a little bit too hot. It's trending in that direction, we'll say. So I'm gonna just turn it down just a hair. So I can tell already that I can definitely do another can, but it's no rush, so we can just add it in the end too. All right, so onion, you gotta chop up. So again, off at the top, I do a little bit off the root too, because otherwise I'll get a bunch of the root on my cutting board, and I don't want that. So there. Gonna chop a little bit more off the top. Again, Julian is just looking for some scraps. He knows that there's meat cooking, but there's no meat a-coming. All right, so we got our onions. We got our onions halved. They're kind of prepped. But I just want to kind of check up on my meat right now. Give it a little turn. See what it looks like. So you can see I flipped it there. It's not, that's like browned, or it's grayed. It's not quite brown, so we're going to leave it. We're going to leave it for a bit. Let it do its thing. While it's sitting there, may as well throw a little bit of seasoning on it. It's a little bit of salt, so I don't know, like 3-4 fingers maybe. We'll call it like, I don't know, half a teaspoon of salt, maybe a teaspoon. You can get away with like, I think it's like a teaspoon of salt per pound of meat, essentially. But I kind of season as I go. So like if I under-season this, maybe I'll over-season some of the veggies. And then I'll kind of finish it up. Hopefully, I under-season the actual sauce a little bit, and then I can adjust the salt level at the end once it's done cooking. So I got, I don't know, like 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, teaspoon of salt, just on top, and we'll just let that sit. So then our onions. So again, nice sharp knife. Just carefully trying not to chop off our fingers, because we need those for hockey and golf and maybe life. This would be beneficial for work too, wouldn't it? So there we go. We got to our root. So when we get to our root, you can just bam, 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 bam. Just cutting off little nibbles. They don't have to be like completely uniform. Like I got some like longer pieces of onion, some smaller. It really doesn't matter. Like it's going in the crock pot. Everything will cook up and be nice and soft by the end of it. All right, so we got our onion chopped. I got a slight single lonely tear in my left eye. It's lovely. Thank you. Yeah, it's a great thing. So we got that garlic. And again, usually I'd be putting it in our lovely little mise en place bowls. But again, you know, you're a college student. You don't have time for cleaning up extra dishes. I find that the mise en place bowls are nice to have because it's makes for a little bit less stressful of a cooking experience. You don't have a cluttered board. Whew. Yeah, and those onions are doing their job. Let me tell you. 2 lonely tears now. Well, I guess they're not so lonely, if there's 2. Anyway. So just nip off the roots there with the garlic, and then we're just gonna slicey thin them. Right, Danielle, slicey thin. Apparently not so slicely thinned. So yeah, so thinly slice them. And then again, we're gonna do the same type of thing as with the chili, where I'm just gonna kind of rock the knife through it to create a mince. Because that's what I find is the easiest for kind of just everyday cooking. So I'm gonna leave that there. Check up on our meat again. Kind of flip over that same piece. It's starting to change color a little bit. We can still leave it a bit. It sounds real good. Just like a nice controlled simmer. There's not like a whole bunch of things splattering up. So again, I just got my hand right here, and we're just doing this. And then, you know, you can kind of do this to get all of the stuff off the knife, bring it all back together, and then run through it again. And that's good enough. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfectly uniform. But we need our garlic. We like our garlic. So yeah, and then I'm just using the back of the knife. If you're using this part of the knife, you're going to dull it quicker, and that makes me sad. So we don't do that. So the pepper, just like that. Yeah. And again, you don't need to throw in a pepper. I'm literally just throwing this in because I don't have anything else to cook this week, and this pepper is not really looking the greatest, so we got to use it up. And we don't like wasting food. Yeah, I'm just taking my knife through it, taking out the white stuff. It's a bit bitter. You don't really want that. In like hot peppers, the white stuff's actually the hottest part of the pepper. The seeds are hot. They're hotter than the flesh, but the white part is actually the hottest. It holds the most Scovilles. Fun fact. So we're just roughly chopping it. I can't even call this a julienne because it's like way too thick. But we're just chopping it, gathering it together. Again, it's just a rough chop. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're just trying to get through cooking, right? We don't actually enjoy this process. Right, Danielle? No, I like cooking. It's fun. Alright, so we got our 3 piles. We'll leave the mushrooms to the end because I'm probably just going to saute the mushrooms at the end. You probably can throw them in as well with it, but there's a bunch of mushrooms, so I'm going to change it up a bit. It'll all be in the recipe. So at this point, hopefully, yeah, there we go. We got some nice color right there. That's what we want. So we'll kind of just flip it all over. Oh yeah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Some beautiful coloring, bunch of grease. Yeah. And that coloring right there on the underside, that's what you really want. That's what you really want for the flavor. So now we can break it apart kind of as like small a chunks as you can. As small a chunks as like you have patience for. Kind of the smaller the chunks, the more it'll melt into the sauce as you're slow cooking it away. Yeah, so, I mean, we kind of got time, so I'll show you something that's kind of fun. So yeah, so usually, instead of using these cans, we actually have these supersized fun cans that we use. Bam! It's basically, like, equitable to, like, 4 of those cans. It's just a big can of whole tomatoes, which was fun for me. Julian, still julienning. Oh, I do have peanut butter. Nice.
Almond butter.
Oh, sorry. Well, almond butter. I forgot I had almond butter. So this would be like, this is our tomato paste. This is kind of how we store it. I don't think I got a small thing of tomato paste. I thought I did. Yeah. Anyway, this would be equitable to this. Okay, I'm gonna put in about the same amount. We have it right there, so why not use it? These are wonderful little mise en place bowls. I don't know, like maybe like 5 5. Yeah, I definitely don't need as much as is in that can, but you know, it's a recipe for you, so you know I don't want you to use half a can and then try and figure out what to do with half a can of tomato paste. But it does freeze relatively well. Yeah, that's about it. Alright, so our meat's still meating, as you can see. I'm gonna wait for the other side to just brown up a bunch more. So at this point, I can probably start seasoning the sauce. Alright, so we got a spaghetti sauce. So we got basil, thyme, fennel, oregano. Red pepper, and this will all be in a spice mix that I'll be giving you, so you can just dump it all in. And then like some of the stuff you don't really need, but like there are some things that like are like non-negotiable, like basil and oregano, kind of essential. Thyme, you probably don't need it, but we like it. Usually I'll throw some rosemary in. I don't have any in our spice thing, but we have this that Danielle grew, so I'm gonna throw just a little pinch of that as well. And then this is one thing that I don't think is negotiable. It's kind of one of my secret ingredients for this. It's fennel seed. So it's very, very strong, very potent, but it's kind of what's found in Italian sausage. So it's kind of fun to put in. So again, hand to pan, right? We're using our hand as our measuring spoon. So like, I don't know, that's thyme. That's a teaspoon of thyme, sure. Basil. Now, if you can get fresh basil, it will really elevate this recipe. Basil, I say like a teaspoon and a half, maybe. You want it a little bit basil forward. Oregano, we don't want too much. I'd say less than the thyme. Maybe like 3/4 of a teaspoon. A little bit less. Our fennel seeds. So fennel seeds are very strong, so you don't want too much. So like this is like even a lot, but it's like half a teaspoon, and then I'm just taking it in my fingers, and I'm just kind of crushing it up as I put it in. Right? You don't have to do this step, but it kind of infuses or it releases the spice a little bit better. So yeah, usually we throw it in like a mortar and pestle, and I'd partially break it up that way, but you might not have one. So what's that? Okay, oregano. So that's all of our greenery. Oh no. Almost all of our greenery. So a little bit of rosemary. There's not much at all. Like half a teaspoon, we'll say that is. Like it's not much. Really not a lot of rosemary. This is especially because it's like homegrown, so it's super strong. Crushed red pepper. So this is kind of like to your spice tolerance. If you like it spicy, you could probably throw in like, you know, a teaspoon or whatever. I throw in just a little bit. Like we'll call it half a teaspoon. Why not? So one thing to think is that the canned tomato that I got, the one is crushed, or the crushed tomato is no salt added. The other one has salt added. So do I need to add salt? Maybe. I don't know. I'll probably add salt. So pepper, I don't know. Like, we'll call it half a teaspoon. So it's going to be a whole bunch of grinds. We really like pepper here. All right, let's call that half a teaspoon because my arm is sore. Okay, so one other special ingredient. So typically we'd be throwing in, well, we're going to use Worcestershire sauce, but typically we have an anchovy fillet. And I would throw that in after so I'm going to cook up my meat, cook up the veg, then I would throw the anchovy fillet in with the veg and break it apart and throw that in the sauce. But this is a reasonable substitute for it. Worcestershire sauce, same thing as in the chili. We like it. It kind of just adds this funk. So we're gonna say like, I don't know, a tablespoon maybe. Seems reasonable. And then tomatoes are super acidic, so we need something to neutralize it. So a little bit of sugar. We're gonna throw in half a tablespoon maybe? 3/4 of a tablespoon, a little bit of sugar. Sugar is kind of one of those things that, like, I add a little bit of, and then when I'm tasting it in the final thing, it's an easy thing to add, and it melds into the the sauce really quickly and easily, just like the salt. So it's better to add too little sugar, too little salt, and then when you're finishing it up, add a little bit of either. Like if it's too acidic, add your sugar. If it tastes bland, it's probably not your spices. It's probably the salt content. So we're back here with the meat. There's still a little bit of pink in some of the pork, but the beef is looking delightful. It's quite greasy too. So we're definitely going to be draining this, but then we're going to use the reserved grain fat to cook up some of our veg as well. Well, we're not doing too bad for time, I don't think. So I could, if I really wanted to, I could totally pull it off right now, and it would be completely fine, even if there's like a little bit of pink in the meat, because we're going to be throwing it in the slow cooker for like what, 4 hours on high, 8 hours on low type deal. Like for me, I'm throwing it in the fridge, putting it on in the morning, and then taking it off after. So our meat, we need something to drain the meat. I don't think there's anything else that I usually add. I guess I did need a little bit of salt. So we added like, I don't know, half a teaspoon of salt, if that. Because there's going to be a bunch of salt in our meat. We're going to season our veg as well with salt. So we're good. We're good. And this time, like with the chili recipe, it built up quite the fond. This time it didn't build up a fond. That's because I oiled the pan. Like the pan was oiled before, so it's kind of just swimming in grease right now. So it wouldn't stick. It wouldn't stick to anything. So we're just breaking up the meat a little bit more. Any of the really big pieces. And that's good enough. Like you can cook it longer, but we don't got time for that. We have things to study or something. I don't know. Whatever school kids do these days. Oops. Excuse me. Alright, so we still have quite a bit of oil in there. You can see some. So it's like, I don't know, like a teaspoon of oil, or grease actually. Teaspoon of grease, so like that's fine. Like we can work with that. We don't need to add any more. So we got in with our onion. With our onion, just spread it out. A little pinch of salt, like 1/8 of a teaspoon, whatever. It's just to draw out some of the moisture. So then we're going to turn it down a bit because we don't want this to get brown. We want it to sweat. You can kind of like hear the audible cues. Like this is like a bit aggressive right now. So this is more of like a saute. But the pan will cool off and it'll eventually quiet down, and then that'll be more of a sweat. So yeah, so we got I think we got all the spices we want in there. And sauce. Our onions are doing its thing, so then we're gonna prep the rest of the veggies, which for us is the mushrooms. So mushrooms, you're not actually supposed to clean. You're just supposed to like wipe off with like a mushroom cloth. I just dust it off with my finger. It's fine. I don't think we've gotten sick yet from it, have we? But you can just straight up wash them off. I don't do it because they pick up moisture really easily. So I'm just nipping off the root, or the stem, sorry. You don't have to do that step. I just do because it's kind of easier to cut. Because then you can just turn it like that, and then bam, 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 done. This is probably like the most prep of the whole thing, but I think mushrooms are nice in like a meat sauce like this. I think I'd say we rarely don't add them at this point. We don't put peppers in it too much these
You can always
days.
get sliced.
What's that?
You can always get sliced from the grocery store.
Yeah, that's right. You can get the pre-sliced ones, and that'll be completely fine too. Yes, I just kind of glanced back at our onions. They're doing schwell. It's they're not quite as loud, like I said. You know, they turned into a nice little sweat. Just a light sweat, right? We're getting nods from the camera lady. Oh, we're getting there. Alright, so our mushrooms are kind of prepped. We're still going to slice them, but I want to have a look back at our onions here. So they're starting to get a little bit more translucent. We definitely want them more cooked than this, but this is, it's starting, right? It's getting there. So we want the onions to have a little bit of a head start over the pepper, because the pepper, like, quite frankly, I could just throw straight in the sauce and it'll be fine. But if I cook the pepper at the same time as the onions, they'll kind of just fall apart and melt. And maybe that's what you want, but not me. I still want like a little bit of body. It's not going to have any bite, but it's not going to melt. So anyway, in with the peppers. Again, we season as we go, so just a little bit of salt. You don't need a lot. There's probably still going to be some from the onions, some from the grease as well that we had added to the, or that we took from the beef and pork mixture. So we don't need a whole lot of salt. So it's still sweating. It's going to do that for a bit. Then we come back with the mushrooms. Woo! Almost lost one. Good thing I have those cat-like reflexes, right, Danielle?
Mm-hmm.
That was her I don't agree. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so we're just going to do that. Just chop through, like, I don't know, 3-4 millimeters. It doesn't really matter. Again, this doesn't have to be completely uniform. It really doesn't matter. So just doing that and then turning it. Because if I keep going the same way, it's kind of just, it makes it tougher, oddly enough. At least I find it's tougher. If you just want to go all the way through, go ahead. But it kind of like, it doesn't give you as much to grab onto, I find. So I'm definitely not using proper chopping technique here, but I don't know, like I should be like doing this. I just don't care for mushrooms. I don't know why. I don't know. I've never done it that way for mushrooms. Safety first, kids. Safety first. So you can get rather quick with this too, right? As you do more and more, you kind of figure it out. But it takes practice, you know. Like the first time you cook a recipe, maybe it'll take you a little bit longer than kind of whatever it took me to cook. Oh, cooking after work is always a bit of a chore, even to talk. So yeah, so we just got a whole bunch of mushrooms here. Did I have too much? We'll see. Probably not, because they really wilt down quite a bit. And again, we're not going to cook them all the way in the pan, because I just don't need to. Because it's going to be simmering for such a long time in the crock pot. You're good. And one thing to just be aware of is like you don't have to do this in a crock pot. I don't. Usually I just do it in a Dutch oven on the stove and just barely have it like bubbling, just barely simmering. And I'll leave it on there for an hour or two, and what that does is it thickens it up a little bit more, and you don't even have to use any tomato paste. There's nothing wrong with using tomato paste though to thicken it up. So this has been simmering away. It's starting to smell good. I'm gonna turn up the heat a little bit, just because it's kind of a quiet simmer. All right, so our meat's drained. It can go in. It can go in, and we'll just mix it up. I'm probably going to be adding that extra can of crushed tomatoes. Probably. Because like looking at this, there's just not enough. There's just not enough space in there. And we don't really... I just kind of eyeball the spices anyway. Because I know that it's more... It's not like about the quantity of spice. It's more about the ratio of herbs and stuff that you throw in there. So you can kind of get away with whatever you like. And, you know, for last few times that I made a pasta sauce, I tried to put in as much fennel seeds as we can tolerate, just to see kind of how it changed the dish, right? Like it's, I don't know, it could be fun. Or you can make it fun, I guess. And sometimes you completely ruin the dish. But that doesn't happen in a while. For the julienne, of course, because it's just a bit of downtime. It's just a bit of downtime, Julian. Look at that, you're on camera. Alright, so, panning back up, our onions, they still have like a little bit, right? Like it's still like a little bit to get through them, but they're pretty soft. They're softened, I'd say. So we're going to make a bit of a well in the middle. And then... Uh-oh, we're struggling. Then in with the garlic. Alright, so we're going to cook that off for, I don't know, a minute or two. Very little bit of salt, but again, you want to season it. Draw out some of the moisture. Just let it chill. Let it cook away. You could even, like, if you wanted it to kind of cook a little bit more thoroughly, you throw a little bit more oil in the pan. I probably could use it, but I'm not gonna, because I know I can get away with it. So, it's all good. So we're just not letting this garlic burn, right? Because if you burn garlic, it's kind of it's not as good of a flavor. I think if you burn most things, it's not as good of a flavor, but garlic, it just does not give a very good, like it's like bitter almost when you burn garlic, and I don't like that. So we're just tossing it around for a little bit, just in the well that we had made. Eventually we'll incorporate it all together, add our tomato paste, and then cook that off until it changes the color. So just kind of like making a well in the center of your pan like that, if you have the space. It can kind of just give the garlic a little bit of a kickstart to cook on its own. And cook through a little faster. And you don't even need to cook all these veggies fully through. It's just kind of good practice, really. Like you're gonna get more like better flavor, I find, from an onion that you've sweated out and then added to your tomato sauce than if you just threw the onion in raw. Like it's just a better flavor, in my opinion. So at this point, our garlic's probably more or less like cooked, at least good enough for us. So again, we're making a well, and this is where you would throw your entire can of tomato paste if you had it. But we had frozen, so why not use it up? So ideally, if I was really on my game, I would have had that set out, so it would have been thawed. But we're just not on the game today for whatever reason, and that's fine. That's fine. It'll all work out. Maybe not that one. Yeah, and we're just keeping it moving, keeping the tomato paste moving. Like if you were had that straight out of a can, you'd just be incorporating it with everything. But we're not quite there yet. We will soon be though. All right. So now it's kind of like broken it apart a bit, it's starting to melt. So we can kind of just start working it all in. And what you're going to notice is that when you throw it straight in the can right away, it's going to be a bit darker. And then as we're kind of cooking it off like this, it'll go out quite a bit lighter actually after a couple of minutes or whatever. And that's what you want. That's what you want. It'll kind of take away some of the tinny taste that comes with tomato paste. And just makes it taste a little bit better, and who doesn't want that? Yeah, so I'm gonna turn up my heat a little bit. It's not really doing much, especially with the tomato paste. Again, going in the pan cold, it's probably cooled down the pan. So we're just making a little adjustments as we see fit. You may not have to if yours is kind of still sizzling away, but mine isn't. And I'm just going to change over to this guy because I can. Scrapes out the pan a bit, but nicer. You don't have to. I mean, if you have like non-stick, it's probably not an issue. Maybe it will be. Whatever. It's all good. This is just what I was feeling. It's the utensil of choice tonight. Alright, so I don't know if it's been a couple of minutes or not. But it does look like it's brightened up a few shades. Just a little bit. So we can remove it at this point. Why not? Straight into our definitely not overfilled mixture. So again, I said I was going to do my onions last. So I'm going to do that. We still got like a little bit of tomato paste in there.
Mushrooms.
Oh, sorry, yeah, my mushrooms, my bad. Thank you, director. So I still got a little bit of tomato paste in there. It's fine. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's not the greatest for like my cast iron, but we use it so much at this point now. It's all good. So just added some more oil in because the pan's dry now. We're just gonna throw them all in. And what's gonna happen with onions, especially fresh ones?
Mushrooms.
So, what's gonna happen with mushrooms? And onions. No, what's gonna happen with mushrooms, like I said, why I don't wash them is that they soak everything up. So they're gonna soak up this oil. Like the pan's gonna be dry, but it does get to a point where it releases all of this liquid. So we're adding a little bit of salt, not much, half a teaspoon, just to encourage that liquid to release. So we're just gonna let that simmer for a little bit. It's like on medium heat for a little bit. Eventually the bottom layer will kind of it'll release its liquid. And while we're here, we're just stirring. I can't remember the last crockpot spaghetti or pasta sauce we've made. It's been a bit. I know that I've done it.
It's been within the last year, I think.
You think so?
Yeah. I pull it out every once in a while.
Yeah. I guess you know what? Like we do make a lot of pasta, or well, a lot of this sauce, quite frankly. But typically, I just do it in the Dutch oven, right? Because it's I don't know. I like it. A little bit more control, I think, as far as like the thickness.
You're also not sharing your stove with your roommates.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, so this is just like a good set it and forget it. So for us, once I get the mushrooms all in, all cooked and all in, I'm gonna throw mine in the fridge, come back in the morning, throw it on low for 8 hours, and then by the time that I'm back home, it'll be all done. But for you, once you're done this, you could throw your lid on, throw it on high for 4 hours, or low for 8, and it should be good. Yeah, and that's the beauty of the crock pot, right? Like, for me, I did a lot of my cooking on Sundays when I was in school, just in prep for the rest of the week. And then I didn't really have to cook for the rest of the week because, you know, you have like a big pot of spaghetti like that to one person. It can last you quite a bit, and the sauce freezes really well too, which is also nice. So I actually have like a little bit of like burning at the bottom of the pan. It's just the tomato paste. It's fine. It's fine. It'll kind of. I should have like cleaned out the pan, but I was too lazy. And I really thought the onions would have released their juices a bit earlier. The mushrooms. I thought the mushrooms would have released their liquid a bit earlier. We're struggling here, Aaron. We're struggling. I thought they would have released their liquid a bit earlier, and then it wouldn't have burnt on as bad. But it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. You can see that there's like a little bit of liquid left in the pan. That's probably from the onions. That one was intentional. It's probably from the mushrooms. So yeah, so we're just gonna leave our whatever the heck these things are called just alone. We're just gonna let them chill. Oh, we are struggling. But best part of it about us struggling is that we're almost done. We just gotta let these whatever vegetables finish cooking, soften up a bit, throw them in our pot, and then I can throw it in the fridge, and we're pretty much done. So
mushrooms aren't vegetables.
We can just throw our fungi in our pot, and we'll be golden. How long was it then? What was it like?
42 minutes.
40. That's reasonable. That's reasonable prep work. I think. It's not bad. Not bad. Yeah, like look at all of those juices coming out of that fungi. Lovely. Just like I said it would happen, right? And then, so what we're looking for is all the mushrooms to release their juices, or onions, or fungi, or whatever they are. All of them to release their juices, and then they'll start, then the pan will be dry. And at that point, that's about as far as you need to take them. You could even throw them in just like this, and it'll be fine. I like cooking them down a bit more. I think it, like, if you throw it in at this stage, they kind of are a little bit more chewy. So if you sweat them down, they become a little bit more melty as a final texture. So, yeah. It's always crazy, like, thinking about how much liquid is in there, because we threw, maybe, like, couple tablespoons of oil in there, and then, like, that's nuts. It's crazy. Anyway. That's fungi for you. I just kind of tasted the sauce. I wanted to see where it was salt and sugar level. There's a chance that it's like, if I taste it right now, it might be too salty, but it'll be fine once it's actually cooked. In that case, in this case, sorry, it tasted pretty good. Like, I don't think I'm gonna have to add a thing to this by the time it's done cooking. Maybe a bit of sugar, but I think it'll be fine with all these fungi in there. You know. Yeah. That's crazy. Right? Wild. Alright, so I'm just turning up the heat a bit just to get this liquid evaporated off a bit quicker. We're almost there, I promise. You've almost made it the full video, you know. I appreciate it, you know. Like and subscribe for more content like this. You know, don't forget to hit the notification box if you want to be reminded of when a new video is posted. Hit the noti. Oh yeah, we're getting some good eye rolls here. So yeah, you can see our mushrooms, like, I'm barely pressing through that, so that's pretty silky smooth. Not all the liquid is evaporated off, and I don't even know if I wanna wait. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think we're about done, and it's gonna be just fine, because all this mushroom liquid is gonna add a nice little umami flavor to it anyway. So let's do it. Off with the heat. Off with the heat, and in we go. We're just gonna stir it in. And then at this point, I'd instruct you to throw it on high for 4 hours, or low for 8. And then just leave it. Leave the lid on. The thing with the slow cooker is, it does depend on the slow cooker. But like if you're checking it all the time, it's just gonna extend the cook time. So just leave it closed. There are some recipes that you want to stir, but for sauces like this and the chili that I made, just leave the lid on. It's fine. It's not going anywhere. So yeah, we'll come back, I guess, tomorrow after work. See you then. Bye.